Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 345, titled Nico No Go. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with pucksandpitchforks.com editor-in-chief Nick Villano, as we're streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitch, and Instagram Live on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio studios, both bunkers in North and South Jersey, covering the Garden State, because Nick Villano has been adamant for all you area football fans to change your allegiances till they call their teams New Jersey, and even the Red Bulls as well.
I won't root for a team that plays in New Jersey and calls themselves New York. I'm mad at the Sirens. I know we have a lot of women's hockey, and I support women's hockey in the aggregate. But if the Sirens are playing in the same building as the New Jersey Devils, listen, if you remember, Sam, when the Riveters moved to New Jersey, do you remember this?
Yes.
They changed their name and they changed their colors. And they didn't call themselves the New Jersey Riveters. They called themselves the Metropolitan Riveters. And I'm fine with that. If you want to do a workaround, if you want to do a loophole, cool. Even if, you want to call yourselves the New York, New Jersey, like the Metro Stars did back in the day, fine. I will live with that. You ain't living in my state and playing in my state and calling yourselves New York. If you want to play in New York, find yourself a little home in that city. Go play in New York. Go on Long Island. There's places to go. But no, you can't have the best of both worlds and get Nick Villano as a fan. Not going to happen. And it's the reason. It is the number one reason why I rep this team as hard as I do. It's the reason why I write for this. Write for Pucks and Pitchforks and run Pucks and Pitchforks, because it is New Jersey's team. I haven't always lived in New Jersey. You knew this, Sam. And people who've been with this podcast for the long term know that I've lived in West Virginia, I've lived in Florida, I've lived in Pennsylvania. But I've always repped New Jersey, as does any true, New Jersey resident, New Jersey native. You will be New Jersey. You were New Jersey born. You were New Jersey bred. And when you die, you are New Jersey dead. What happens in between is irrelevant. Jersey stays with you forever. So when you come into my state, Sam, when you come into my state and you keep the name that you had when you played in Yankee Stadium, it's been 50 years since Big Blue has been in New Jersey. 1976. It's been, 46 years since the Jets moved here. It's long time that you give credence to the state in which you represent.
Yeah,
and I hope.
I agree with you. You want to hear a funny story off the topic, but on topic. Years ago, when I was a young buck out of college, there was talk of moving the New York Stock Exchange to Jersey City. But I believe they wanted to keep it the New York Stock Exchange, but there were people that wanted to be New Jersey Stock Exchange, but they wanted to keep, and the reason, I mean, it was some kind of like billions of dollars, new technology, new buildings, just for traders. I guess it never worked out because they're still on Wall Street in New York. But but I remember that was a big deal.
I love New York City. I get mad at people who call Philadelphia the city because the city is New York City. But I am a tourist in New York City. I love New York City like I love Disneyland. You know what I mean? Like, I understand my role there. I know New York City because I work there probably like once a month. Maybe, lately it's been a little bit more. So, I know how to get around the subway. I know how things work. I keenly study the city because it's part of my job. But there is a line of demarcation between how I look at New York and how I look at New Jersey. It's almost like, I don't know. I don't have a good comparison, but I had one. But I think I'll get.
You know what? I'll make a hockey reference here. New York Ranger fans, when they come into New Jersey, think that they own New Jersey, and then hearing all these politicians going on about FIFA from New York, coming into New Jersey, talking about how the World Cup's coming to New York. Not exactly. Because your city is too stupid and don't know how to handle this. That's why it's in New Jersey. That's the way I look at it.
Can I tell you something? I'm mad that I didn't make this the title. Now I'm mad. Now I'm mad at myself. New Yorkers made me mad at myself.
Yeah, but Nico No-Go is not bad. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm interested in this topic because, it pains me as well because when the New York Football Giants upset the New England Patriots the first time around, that undefeated season, and I remember, and it's probably buried somewhere on my Facebook account, that I was pissed that, what's that? Was it John Mara? Wellington had passed, but, thanked everybody but New Jersey. Everybody in New York. Except for New Jersey.
And did they go down the Canyon of Heroes?
I believe they did, because that was Elliot Spitzer's last speech before that whole Client 9 mess, and he was talking a lot of trash as well. I remember that. I was like, wow, this governor is talking a lot of trash, and I was loving it. Don't get me wrong, against the Patriots because of that 18-1 Giant loss, all that. Not I'm rubbing it in, Nick, but I remember that, and I just hate that attitude when Ranger fans come into our building and all that. They think like they own you, like we're beneath them. But the reality is, New York is, hate to say it, it's declining. They're all moving out. They're all moving out of New Jersey, too. High taxes. They're all going to North Carolina, Florida, Texas.
That's, how do I say this? Overassumed. It was the case like 4 years ago. Parts of Florida actually lost population in this latest census. So, again,
really?
I think that. Mm-hmm.
But that was in 2020.
Yep. There's like midterm censuses that they're
really?
Not the full.
I never knew that. Never knew that.
Some states will do it. There's just recent data that came out that said, like, especially in the Miami area, Miami is losing population. Miami-Dade and Broward have lost population from, I don't know what the timetable is, but again, I know these things because I have to study kind of city trends for work. Anyway, point being is, I I always say this. It's funny. I don't hate New Yorkers, but the New Yorkers I hate tend to be Rangers fans because they have that pompous attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why, like the state mantra of New Jersey is, "You think you're better than me?" That's because we're talking to Rangers fans. You think you're better than me? Oh, you think you're better than me? And then you do. They do. They think just because they live in this city, they're better than people, especially New Jersey. They think they're better than everybody, but like New Jersey has a special place of just I'm trying to think of the right word, but like just this aura where like, yeah, we're New York, you're New Jersey. Who cares? Who cares? New Jersey is the best state in the country. I've been to most of them. And I will put New Jersey up against all of them. And yes, obviously going to tourist attractions is different than living in the state, but I've lived in Florida. I lived in, a couple different places. I've spent extended road trips in multiple places on the East Coast. And I've been in New York a lot. I have family who lives in New York City. And they love it, and I'm very happy for them. And New York is an eclectic situation, and the people who live there, like because of the article I wrote, and because of the tweet I sent out, I had some people who reached out to me and said, "Listen, like it's not all of us." I was like, "I get it," and we've been in that position, right, where it's like New Jersey is the armpit of this, and you're like, why are you like putting everybody kind of in the same breath? But like I know a lot of Islanders fans, and Islanders fans are insane about their team, but they don't like insult other teams. You know what I mean? They're not like talking down, except the Rangers fans. But like very few Islanders fans have been in my mentions like saying nasty things.
That's true. That is true.
They're crazy. They're like, we're winning the Stanley Cup. Oh, we're the worst team in the league. Like they're extremists, but about their own team, and that's fine. Like say whatever you want about your own team, And like, listen, they'll throw out the crazy mock trade, be like, we'll trade Nico Hischier for, a third-round pick. Great trade for everybody. Like they'll say crazy stuff like that. It's like, yeah, but we got to pay Nico, so it's like it's a great trade. But they're not going to insult you. When Rangers fans, I'm insulted by Rangers fans daily.
But don't discount Islander fans, because we saw what they did to John Tavares when he came back. It was amazing.
Right. They hate Rangers fans and they hate Tavares.
Yeah.
So like there's vitriol there, but it's from the Rangers. It's like you started it kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And you have to remember, like, they didn't throw stuff. Like, I don't think they crossed the line. You can boo. You paid money to be there. You can boo all you want. And again, you have to remind me. I don't remember any instance of, racial epithets or sexist epithets or homophobic things like that you hear. I do hear that with Rangers fans. I'm not saying all Rangers fans are there. That's extreme. But I have heard that. Like, that's a thing.
Well, this is, I'll even say a real-life experience with the podcast. If you remember all those outdoor big stage events, Devils Rangers during the playoffs, the Ranger fans were breaking my equipment, and they didn't care. And one time, there was one that went on the stage, and Chico was on live air and almost knocked over the speaker on top of Chico.
Sam, this is why I don't do the events for Devils Rangers.
It's body armor night.
Listen, I'm hitting them with the Stevens on Lindros, if anybody does that.
Yeah. And I have video of it too, and of Ranger fans like literally messing with my equipment when I'm not there. And then there was one time, finished Devil's After Dark, went to the bathroom, came back. There was a Devils. It was actually two Ranger fans fighting, I believe, and he threw the one guy, and he landed on all of my equipment, and everything fell down to the ground from the table.
Again, they're very how do we say? It's fine. We don't need to talk about this all night, but you got me fired up, and now I'm in trouble, Sam. So I gotta.
Yeah, let's talk about Nico No-Go. Let's talk about Nico Hischier.
Yeah, listen, I'm encouraged. You know, Christy Flannery, friend of the podcast, hockey news reporter, she got the exclusive that said that Sonny Mehta reached out to Elaine Roy, Nico Hischier's agent, and she called it I think she called it an introductory conversation, right? Am I correct in that?
Yep.
And, you know, John Bailey of Pucks and Pitchforks wrote a story just kind of going in depth of that. You know, we gave Christy credit. We appreciate her getting that report. But we went in depth of, like, Elaine Roy has a surprisingly few amount of players on the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of players on the Devils. So it really makes sense that Mehta would give him a call and just give him, like, have that introductory conversation. Because obviously the Nico Hischier thing is top of mind, but Brendan Dillon is one of the guys under contract with Roy. The names are escaping me now, but there's 4 or 5 players that Roy represents on the Devils, including like some of the younger guys. And so listen, you're gonna have like. I wouldn't be surprised if Mehta's calling all of those guys, right? And just saying, hey, great, listen, so I got it up right now. Roy has 6 active Devils contracts, more than any other team in the league. Here's what's crazy, Sam. He has $92 million in Devils contracts that are active right now. And his next closest team looks to be the Lightning. And that's just one contract. That's worth $52 million. So, you know, he is Hischier, Brendan Dillon, Jonas Siegenthaler, Jake Allen, and then Mikhail Dialte, who I think just signed his entry-level contract. Dennis Chalowski.
Markstrom.
I don't think he has Markstrom. Markstrom, I think, is a different agent.
Oh, I thought you were talking about guys under contract with the Devils.
Oh.
Sorry.
So again, the conversation makes sense. Here's the thing that I think here's the thing that we're not putting a lot of thought into. He sure can't sign anything until the 1st of July. We're still 2 months away before he's even eligible to sign anything. It makes sense to have those conversations to see if something's there. But you're not allowed to hear news until July 1st. Like, they're not allowed to leak it. They're not allowed to get anything out there as far as the agreed-upon contract. I don't think. Maybe because he's on the team, maybe there's some gray area there with the league, and I don't see how you can really get in trouble for having those conversations. Like, those conversations are allowed, but no, you cannot put pen to paper until July 1st. So be patient. Here's the ones I'm looking for, and I think it's because Mehta just started. No college free agents signed or college players signed. No Anton Silyev contract yet. That's where I was expecting to get some traction. I thought Silyev would have signed by now. Honestly, I thought he would have signed right after the season ended. Maybe there's some things to be worked out there with the KHL. I'm not sure. I was under the impression that his contract was over. It ended. But Maybe there's some things to figure out there. I wrote about this on pucksfortricks.com. He needs to sign Mikhail Yegorov. I want him under contract. I don't want him to go to Boston College again. Or Boston University. Apologies. I don't want him to go to Boston University again. I don't. I think he was asked to do too much this season. And I don't see them getting that much better. I think they'll be like better because the roster's still really talented, but they're losing more players again. So I just want them to sign Yegorov, bring him in, and then you got Yegorov and Silyev kind of be like each other's buddy. You know what I mean? You get like two Russian players. And I know Yegorov's been here for a little while, but I'm sure he still speaks Russian. So you have that connection. I think that will help both grow and both thrive in this new system. But I want those two signed. I want him to sign Samo Salminen from Denver. He becomes a free agent on August 15th, but he plays center. We're desperately low on center depth. You got to sign him. He was an assistant captain for Denver, and they won the national championship. You got to get that guy signed. Former third-round pick, had a really tumultuous college career. If you remember, he originally signed with Denver and then was ineligible due to something wrong with his admissions, something really nonsensical. It was during COVID, and he was coming over from Finland, I believe. So there was just like, it was probably like a paperwork issue, but he lost eligibility. Had to quickly transfer to UConn and just never clicked at UConn. Stayed there for 2 years, went back to Denver once they kind of like figured everything out. And has been playing in a winter and he's doing all the right things. He kind of gives me like somebody who could turn into like what we think Haminaho should be, except a center. I think he's like a guy who should be, I think he has John Madden upside. I don't think he'll get there, but I think that's his upside. I think he's a guy, he'll kill penalties, he'll play defense, he'll do all the right things, play the game the right way, future leader of this team, a guy like you could sign that guy for 15 years to play really well if he turns into what I think he could turn into. And then there's, I think that's, trying to think. I think that's it. But those are like the things that Maeda can do right now. Here's the other thing you can do. You got to figure out the coach. And when I say coach, I mean that in the aggregate term. To me, there are 4 massive decisions that Maeda has to make. I'm going to write about this tonight, but I think he should keep Bradshaw no matter what. I thought Shaw did a pretty good job under the circumstances. Zone exits were a problem, but I think that's a problem in roster construction. The zone exits were mistakes. They weren't like an issue with the system. I want them to keep Bradshaw. I think Bradshaw's a really good defensive mind. The decisions you have to make are on Keefe, Jeremy Colleton, Rogalski, the goalie coach, and then Ryan Pront. I think you're keeping Breland. Breland does what he does well. I think a lot of people like him. The Russians really like having him on the team. I think you keep Breland. I think you keep Shaw. Perron, I don't know if you know this, Sam. Ryan Perron is the head coach in Utica.
Mm-hmm.
He's still interim.
Really?
For almost 2 full seasons, he's the interim head coach of the Utica Comets. Kevin Dineen was fired very early in last year. Like in what, November? That's an insanely long time to make somebody interim. But
wow.
the Utica Comets didn't have a good season. They made a run at the end, and they played with grit. In the final month, almost made the playoffs, but you did. You missed it by a point.
That's insane. That is insane. I want to verify that. Not that I don't trust you, but I just want to verify that. Did Tom Fitzgerald? Did Tom Fitzgerald forget to follow up with Dan McKinnon? Hey, did you take the interim tag off of him, or do you get a better deal?
The Devils website is updated as soon as a new person is hired or fired or moves on, and he's listed as interim head coach on the Devils website.
Wow.
So, again, maybe somebody messed up on the website, but I can only go based on the information that I have in front of me. That's a sneaky important job. And I wrote about this on puckspitchworks.com. I need a good coach there. Because you got important players coming there. And Tom Fitzgerald and Dan McKinnon did a terrible job of hiring coaches. From a results standpoint. I liked the Kevin Dineen hiring. I thought it was the smart hire, and it just didn't work out. So sometimes it happens. But when you look at the results, who was it before Dineen? Oh, it was Dennehy. Also didn't work out. Utica's been terrible for years. Utica's made the playoffs twice since I've covered them. And obviously some of that time was in Binghamton. But I think there's two instances that I can remember of the Devils minor league team making the playoffs, and no, there's three. There's at least three. Because one time they barely made it, then they made a run. Another time they were one of the best teams in the league and then got beat down in the first round. And then one time they made it to the qualifying round. I can't remember what they did. Yeah, I think that's an underrated thing. Obviously, Rogalski, everybody kind of wants a new goalie coach. I can't blame them. Goalie has been the reason why this team stinks.
Agreed.
And somebody has to take the fall. And I think you're going to try to make Markstrom take the fall, but you also got to look at the coach and be like, what are we paying you for?
Agreed.
And, yeah. Because here's the thing, Sam. If you stick with Markstrom and Allen, I think the goalie coach becomes the most important coach you have. And here's why. I think Markstrom and Allen are both going to have to adjust as age starts to hit them. Once they don't have that quick wrist or that shoulder mobility or that side-to-side movement, the groins start to wear down, the hips start to wear down, you have to learn a new style to extend your career. And they're both kind of that. Jake Allen less so, because Jake Allen has less games on those hips. But Markstrom very clearly has to learn a new style because the athletic style that he was playing just doesn't work.
Oh,
even
his glove
Brodeur
was slow. His glove was slow this season.
Yep. And that's a shoulder issue. Even Brodeur. Brodeur survived because he went from uber athletic to hockey IQ through the roof. Brodeur was always in position in his late 30s and early 40s. It was when, what happened at the end was he just was a second slow to get in position. And once he was a second slow on the glove and everything else, and he made up for that by always being in position and knowing exactly where the puck was going and basically predicting the future because he was just such an incredible hockey mind. But once he just couldn't get there fast enough anymore, that's when, he was starting to hover around that 900 save percentage, which, again, is still an NHL goalie, but just not
plus a bad team. At that level. Plus they were a bad team.
Yeah, he was peppered with shots. It was a bad defense. Bryce Albert got old overnight. which was very unfortunate. I don't know if he got injured or what. We'd have to talk to Bryce about that. And I think Andy Green was their best defenseman, who's good, but like I don't want Andy Green ever to be your best defenseman. You had a young David Severson, but like these are they were always missing that number one to push everybody down.
Yager was the top player.
Yeah, the team stunk. And they kept Lou kept adding players that were terrible. Like Tuomo Michael Ryder. I liked Michael Ryder's signing, but it just didn't. I don't remember if he traded for him or signed him. But
when did they get Grabner? Was that in 2017?
That was in 18.
18.
That was in 18. Yeah, so it was after. But they got. I think you're thinking of. Are you thinking of Brunner or are you thinking of Camilleri?
Neither. Brunner was bad. He reminds me of Lamico.
Or not? Year. Am I thinking of Camilleri or who am I thinking of? Clough?
Well, Ryan Clough was just awful. I mean, that was highway robbery. I mean,
yeah, that looked like a bad signing when he made it, and it got worse. Yeah.
But part of me thinks that Ryan Clough not playing did the Devils a favor. It's just the problem is he's hogging. Well, actually, he was on the injured reserve, right? He was on the LTIR.
Yeah. It was almost like a strategic move.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Rogalski, I don't fire coaches, Sam, but that one's as close as I'm going to get. I'll let that speak for itself.
I don't like to use the word fire. I like a change of direction.
Opening up for opportunities.
But now watch Rogalski go to another team, and that team wins the Stanley Cup with great goaltending. No, I'm just saying that that's what typically happens.
I know, but like those things, like AJ Greer, like everybody's like, "Wow, man, imagine we had AJ Greer didn't fit what they needed." Jesper Boquist did. That one hurt more than Greer did because Greer came in. What was that trade? It was a pretty significant player. Why can't I think of it? It was him in a second-round pick. It was a Colorado, right?
Was it Colorado? Yeah, it may have been Colorado.
Or no, was it the Palmieri trade?
I'm looking it up. Looking it up right now.
Yeah, Islanders to New Jersey. Yeah, he was in the Palmieri trade. Palmieri and Zajac trade. So, he was kind of the AHL throw-in. What did he... Yeah, so... And we forget, Here's what we forget. This is the part that everybody forgets. He signed with the Bruins and played pretty well after he left the Devils, made it to the NHL roster. The part that nobody talks about, Sam, is that the Bruins put him on waivers. And then he was claimed by the Flames after the Devils already said goodbye to him. So we gotta calm down. Although John Bailey just wrote an article for FoxPitchforks.com talking about how he thinks that Maeda is going to sign Greer. He thinks it's going to be one of his first signings, just because that Florida connection. Greer knows the Devils. Interesting connection. We'll see. If you want to read more about that, go to puckspitchforks.com. Now, before we go, Sam, I know we're coming to the end, so I want to really quickly just mention: do you want Connor Hellebuck?
I can't answer that question without asking you, would you take Gustafsson in a trade as an alternative?
You got to get rid of Markstrom, and you can't buy him out in either scenario. You have to trade him full contract.
I'm all in on Hellebuck to answer your question. But there are other options there. But you're right. Like, what do you give up to Bill Guerin? but I think he has more of the problem.
If I'm the Devils, I just go to him. It all depends. If the Stars win the next 2 games, it's a different conversation. Because if the Stars win the next 2 games, I go to him. I'm like, here, I'll give you Nemeth, Silyev, 2 first-round picks, Dawson Mercer, and you have to take on the Markstrom contract for Gustafson and Quinn.
Can you repeat that again? That's a big trade.
Yeah. Silyev, Nemeth, Mercer, 2 first-round picks, and Markstrom for Gustafson and Quinn Hughes.
I think that's fair because you're taking a risk on Quinn not re-signing with New Jersey, even though we all know he would.
I think you're taking a problem off of Bill Guerin's hands and repaying him the price he paid, plus, you're giving him an extra first for Gustafson and taking on the Markstrom contract. So taking on the Markstrom contract, I think, could be worth as much as a second-round pick. And then Gustafson, with the issue in the long-term contract, probably another second-round pick. So you just add this together, I think it's a first-round pick. So you're giving them, whatever it is, 12th overall this year, the risk of the first-round pick next year. But, Sam, so what that does, you've basically given them everything, right? That puts you in a position where you have to really trade one more guy on the defensive side. I'm begging Kovacevic to waive that deal. You might buy out Kovacevic if that happens. That would put him on the books for a really long time, though. I think that number would be on the books for 8 years. I'd rather just give up a pick and just trade him. Or just see if somebody would take him. I think somebody would take him.
Islanders? They like taking our players.
I think it would be San Jose. Problem is he's a full no trade clause because Tom Fitzgerald's an idiot. Sorry, that was mean. But giving Johnny Kovacevic a full no trade clause is psychotic. Truly psychotic. Full? Crazy. But I think Anaheim would take him. I think there's a couple guys who would take him. Obviously, there's the Hamilton of it all. I would try to. Listen, if you could trade both, you'd have to figure out, and I wrote about this on pucksfishing.com, if Seamus Casey is ready and healthy, I think I take the chance. You got to have some depth that's not Chalowski. You got to have a better depth player. That's why I said Liljegren, who's in Washington. I think that's a good depth piece. And let Liljegren and Casey fight it out in training camp. There's a lot you can do here. The problem is then, so that's the Gustafson trade. Jets Whiteout, which is the fan-sided blog for the Winnipeg Jets, wrote that to get Hellebuck, they think it's going to be Silyev, Yegorov, and the 27 first. But the 27 first is a question mark. They think Silyev and Yegorov are the players. I'm so high on Yegorov still that I think I say no. Here's the thing about Hellebuck, Sam, is he was an average goalie last year. I don't know if you know that. His goals saved above average was hovering around 0. The year before, his goals saved above average was 41. Best in the league. Better than anybody this year, too. So I think he still has that in him. I think it was just a down year. That's the problem. A down year for Markstrom is a detriment to your team. A down year for Hellebuck is, the 15th guy. So, but the top years for Hellebuck, if you get a top year for Hellebuck and everybody's hitting on all cylinders, this team's a cup team. That's how you beat the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, Sam. You saw that average goalie from Hellebuck, but guess what? What did he do when it mattered? He was the best guy on the ice in the Olympics.
He was.
So, I think it was just a dejected feeling, and you heard that in the post-game presser or whatever, the post-season presser. He seems like he's kind of dejected. Now, would he accept the trade to the Devils, who are a team who haven't really made it anywhere, when he could go to a team like the Hurricanes? I don't know. Maybe not. But we'll see. That's all I got, Sam.
Oh. Time for plugs?
Yeah. So that's on pucksandpitchforks.com, too. I wrote a story about Hellebuck and that trade proposal and what I think about it. I'm going to write about Brad Shaw tonight. We got a story on Connor Brown. Hey, Sam, did you know the last time that Connor Brown went to the World Championships, he had as many assists in that 10-game tournament that he had the whole NHL season that year?
Wow.
Crazy. So, dude steps up when he's next to really good players. I'm kind of going forward with Connor Brown as the top 6 piece. And then you just got to upgrade a Mercer. So I think that's the focus that I'm making. You don't need a guy next to Jack anymore. You need a guy next to Timo and Nico. That's how I'm moving forward. So I'll probably write about that. There's so many articles on pucksandpitchforks.com right now. We've written about everything. All the things that Sonny Maeda is going to do. Arseny Gritsik's next contract it just went up there right before the podcast. There's a bunch. There's so much. And we're going to be talking about trades and draft and the playoffs and so many other things. That's on pucksandpitchforks.com right now, Sam.
All right. Morning Woo tomorrow morning. And on the Morning Woo, I got a little announcement to make. I'll tease it that way. I told you before we went on. Just a little announcement. That's all. And we'll go from there. By the way, everyone's commenting in the YouTube live that the Mets are a dumpster fire. They're so bad. That's
the Mets, yeah.
Yeah. This is why I hate analytics.
What do you hate? How did that turn into that?
Well, David Stearns is an analytics guy.
I think that David Stearns is just a bad GM.
Yeah.
Analytics guys could be bad GMs. Hey, at least you're signing Lakey Fotu, the New York Giants.
Yeah. I was reminiscing today about there was a period of time where my life peaked in my early 20s when the Giants went to the Super Bowl, the Knicks went to the NBA Finals, the Devils, winning a cup, and the Yankees and Mets were in the World Series. I think my life peaked in 2003.
Well, yeah, because 2000 for me was Yankees, Devils. That was coming off the Knicks.
Yeah.
The Knicks in the finals. I wasn't the biggest football fan back then, so that was peak for me.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, was there an Olympics that year in 2000?
I was in Sydney, and then and don't forget what came after it. The Nets getting Jason Kidd and going to the finals twice, and both the Devils and Nets were in 2003 finals.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
And were they in Continental then?
Yes. Yep. Yep. I remember the banner.
Fun stuff.
Home of Champions or something. I forgot what it was called. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was fun times. Fun times to be a sports fan. And again, those were my prime years. Those were like middle school and high school.
And Lou Lamoriello was overseeing both teams, if you remember.
That was such a weird time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dive into that in the offseason because that was such a weird time. And we
Yeah.
don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. Lewis Katz, Ray Chambers, all those folks, Yank Nets, George Steinbrenner. That's an article.
Yank Nets. Yank Nets. I have written about Yank Nets because that was another bizarre one.
Yep.
When,
All right.
when George Steinbrenner owned the Devils, crazy stuff.
Yep. All right. Dropping the podcast in 20 minutes. Till next time, let's go Devils.